when we're talking about the Big Bang theory, we cannot avoid that Stephen Hawking's Stephen Hawking said there's a space-time singularity. That at that time, at that point of time, there's a big explosion. However, well, at the beginning, I accepted it as you know as a theory. I think it's cool and it makes sense to me with my scientific knowledge. But if you look at uh, the theory in greater details, it's not um, it's not it doesn't make sense because first of all, you have to be able to explain what is the singularity. I wrote a paper um, on this. If you are interested, you can go to my LinkedIn page to read the paper. But however, right now I just read some of the paper so that you would be able to understand what I'm talking about.
There's such a thing as singularity in space-time? The short answer is no. Einstein's general theory of relativity didn't prove anything like this. Relativity in itself is still a theory. A theory can't do anything but speculation. The real question is not about if there could be a singularity in space-time. The real question is, can we speculate if there is a singularity in space-time? Let's go back to the singularity. By definition, it's a single point, or a state of single point, a point between different states of materials. Is there a single point that we call change of material from one state to another? No, there is no such defined single point, because change by its definition is a process. There is no such thing that, at least in our languages, can describe that such a process as one single point, unless you define the single point as a process, which this single point by your definition is no longer a point, is a time-space continuity. If there is no single point between states of materials, is there a single point between existence of material and non-existence of material? The answer is still no, and existence of new material has to undergo a process of creation. Such a process is humanly comprehensible and reproducible in our experiment. To push the idea of such a single point in spacetime is fundamentally wrong in philosophy and confusing our rationales. Such theories are simply extremely misguided by fallacious logics and distortion of academic honesty. The reason it's so important for us to understand that singularity is a speculation is that there is sensible experience from human history. When we push for change in status quo, the change is not guaranteed to the direction of new state of being. Most of the time we end up with blowed up all existence of our advancement and taking us back to start of our existence. Thus pushing for singularity of change is, to me, merely another preach for end of time, or social destruction, nothing more than it is or nothing more than it should be. Thus most likely scenarios that we might end up with is reversing back to the beginning of our civilization. The depth and duration of our civilization destruction is depending on how much pressure that we are inserting right now. Such logics are not only true and they are coordinating with what so far we found in history. Our advancement to a higher or most sophistic state is depending on how much humanity we can preserve right now at this moment, and if we can overcome the blowout created by such distortion and confusion. As we going back to time, we also going back in space, and such a reserved journey by no means would give us more power on controlling our destiny. But if particles and antiparticles are separated by extremely high temperature, doesn't it mean that by separation of particles and antiparticles, space were created? There goes my theory of creation of universe. If we agree there is no space at the beginning of non-existence of particles, then is space coming out of the separation of particles and antiparticles. Such separation changed the state of pre-existence of particle and antiparticle pair. Such separation created particle and antiparticles, and such separation also with the nature of decreasing in temperature, decreasing energy. Where does the energy go? It's being used to bind antiparticles to form a void that's physical stable for stage of particles. This is only logic meaningful how this universe being created. It's not that we lost antiparticles or we couldn't find antiparticles or we simply dislocated antiparticles. We are living inside of it, and the reason that particles are accumulating around us is because of the attraction of such antiparticles or binding state of antiparticles we call void. Gravity is not a force, it's a status relationship between particles and bound antiparticles we call space or void. Such relationship is independent of our perception of time and space, its existence defined by status of particle and antiparticles, not by our recognition of space-time. In the past, when we talked about gravity, we refer gravity as mass to mass, or particle to particle. No, we didn't get the very core of it, or we are not precise on this. Our gravity is determined primarily by the relationship between particles and bundle of antiparticles, and this is why there is no gravity in void, space without mass particles. But if we have spaceship in a void, we can create gravity by mere presence of particles. It's just that the gravity depends on the proportion between mass of particles and space. In our current gravity theory, we didn't put antiparticles or space into account. This is why our calculation is not accurate. Space precedes time. Before I point this out, we don't have recognition of such a reality, hence we don't have time access. After such recognition spread to public knowledge, its timeline finally established by common consensus. That is to say, there is no time before our sensible reality, or recognized reality. Because before we establish such reality, we are at crossroad, that multi-direction is possible, and because of such possibility, the time axis is not possible being established on one direction. With its unique directional nature, such time is not possible. This is also why we strive to gain recognition, because such recognition would gain our existence of time axis by people who recognize us. So far, with the uncertainty of reality, time and space are separated, not till we establish space for our reality, our time axis hence follows. So you can see, time is human perception, while space is a reality. To us human, there is no separation of time-space, but not to God. In nature, such separation is reality. And human only bound to understand such reality continuity by using time axis. Many of our confusion are coming out of our perception of time, and misstatement of the nature of definition on the axis of time. Such confusion becomes so subtle and deadly that in the long run distorted our perception of reality. To the point, the only reasonable correction is to get rid of time, hence human existence ceases or going back to the beginning of our time. So again, space and reality created on its own, independent of human sensibility. Once we recognize such reality, we inevitably add a time axis for our perception, because there is no other way for us to comprehensive of reality continuity. With more and more accumulated continuities we have to grasp, we fail to clarify the old outdated perception of reality, hence we created our human confusion of reality. Such confusion rooted in our humanity, it's hard to reach the new heights without renew our perception of time, and its manifestation in all aspects of our languages and knowledges. This is my understanding of creation of our universe, and singularity. With my perception of space and time, the only perceivable reality for us human, unless we find something else is space-time. Nature created space, we created time. Our existence in space, to us, is space-time. Like we are in a speedy train, we only can talk relatively to us what is meant for us the reality is. We are in no position to stand still outside of time to describe our reality without metaphysical experience or logicals. It's similar like we talk about reality out of our physical shell. But what is it looking like if there is no such thing as time? That is to say, Somehow there is a reality that without time, without process, without meaning of speed, there must be something like this, because the creation of this universe depends on its existence. And such existence outside of time and space, to us, just outside of time is hard to image, let alone out of such space our universe is in. But by relationship, we can guess that changes in our universe or in our perception would not be changes at all to it, and our time perception due to these changes has no meaning to it at all. All of our universe to it is a stone, an object, a state, in human perceivable term. From us, we have no handle to grasp such it, because our limitation is no meaning to it, and outside of our limitation it's no meaning to us. If such it is the cause of our universe, the very creation of our universe has no meaning to it, and by such reasoning, the only way we are able to reach beyond ourself is not lying in our understanding of this universe or its interaction, it lies beyond ourself. The only way we can be beyond ourselves is through metaphysics, not the metaphysics with wild imagination, but metaphysics with our clearly defined knowledge on the time perception that we gain. The closer we gain clear definition of our time perception of reality, the feasible chance we gain to reach to it. Because our soul, as we define it, and if there is one, ignore both time and space, and such characters are the characters of it, and such connection would be our only bet on reach out of time and space. To further analyze the situation, why does extreme high temperature needed for separation of particles and antiparticles? Which means that enormous energy was needed for creation of universe. Which also means that pre-time there was an enormous energy outside of our universe. But such explosion of energy can't be there as single point. What was it beyond the creation of our universe caused such energy to explode to separate particle and antiparticles? Also, if space is made of antiparticles, then there would be no higher dimension, because the higher dimension or multiple alternative dimensions has to come into existence with either particles or antiparticles. If antiparticles being used up to form our universe, then there is only our dimension is true, and there is no more dimension to explore. Multi-universe is not possible. If our universe needs energy to be created, then such energy is not any energy that we know, because if there is a such energy existed before our universe, then there must be materials that exists before our universe. Such materials must blade into our creation, and there could not be a model of Big Bang. But if there is no materials before our universe, then where the energy comes from? Such contradiction is beyond quantum physics itself or outside of our reach. But if we can't explain the time-space outside of our time-space, how could we explain our time-space? Or time-space? Like Hawking claims space-time is finite is to say there is no Big Bang, and source of creation of space. This goes back to Aquinas' reasoning. If there is an effect, there must be a cause. It is fascinating how we all existence and the existence around us coming from creation. Theation. Think about all the atom inside a rock. If they can think, they must think there is a creation of such a rock.
Okay. First of all, you can talk all about your singularity in physics, in quantum physics, in general physics, or you can speculate, but there's no singularity per se, single point for for a material come from non-material, for a big bang happen out of nothingness. It is not possible in the sense that it has to be able to be perceived by human sense or by human existence or by material existence. We human do not exist at the time of universal universe creation, beginning of the universe creation, but there has to be sensible trace to that process, and it That process is a time-space continuum unity. It cannot be a single point magically out of blue come out of this universe creation. That's what I'm trying to say. And it's fundamentally, philosophically wrong to push that speculation that there's one single point, either time or space, or there's no time because that's we did not perceive it. Um, uh, oh, if with that theory, our perception, if our perception is there, coordinate with the reality, there's just no that single point. This is why when I can give you an example that when water turns into ice, we artificially insert that temperature as changing a state of the H2O. But that doesn't by no means that is a singularity. No, that's artificial insertion because the for H2O change from state of liquid to ice, there's a process in between, either by temperature decrease process or by time elapse. There's a process that humanly is sensible. It is sensible to our perception. By no means that it could be out of blue that that single with the existence of that single point of the time that water changes into ice. That's what I'm saying. So if that process is a space-time continuum, then it's within our human perception. If the creation of the universe with is a space-time continuous, that means that it is humanly sensible. We could define that process. We could um, reason that process. So come to think about that. If we can reason that process, what does that mean? It means that we can reason how just giving if the Big Bang is true, how non-existence of material become existence of material, right? So if that's the underlying logic, if we can do that, which means that either particle or antiparticle or space created alongside has to be there for human to be able to perceive. That's what I'm trying to say. And the similar logical is being applied to the sociology because, like today, um, people have a similar mentality to say, oh, if there's a technology singularity and the technological singularity, there must be a sociological singularity that by some miracle at that space point of time we would advance into something miraculous, something better, something some state that's so um, advanced. No, that's my point. We should not push the idea of singularity. It's just not possible. It has to be able to perceive by human. It has to be within a space time. It has to be a process, which by no means give us power that saying that if we insert all this pressure, we would automatically reach to that point and will boom become something new. Or technology reach to some point, boom, there's a whole new set of technology come out. No, that is not logical or philosophical sound reasoning. We have to, it is cruel for, for us to insert all this pressure into society. Maybe it is okay for people who with means, but majority of people are making are getting along, making their life, living their life with limited source, limited means. And when you insert all this social pressure, racism, sexism, and push for the uh, push people out of a welfare system, which some of the people really need it. That's not that's not the right way for social progress. That's just simply not right. That's my point. And from scientific view, philosophical view, logical reasoning, that is based on the finances, uh, based on the wrong reasoning. That's logical fallacy. I wish people would wake up to the fact that uh, the change is not a single point. It's not steamed rice. You have a steamy ball, and you keep adding pressure into it. And you would wish that at one point the rice would uh, uh, turn into something you edible. No, it's a process, and there's by no guarantee that this process would go through a threshold that would go to the direction that you are wishing for. It could just blow up the whole cover. So to human history is the same thing. If we keep adding all this radicalism and social pressure, by no means that would guarantee us to go to the direction of a better society. It could also wipe out the civilization, go back to the beginning of this of our civilization. That's also the possible direction. So that singularity theory, it could view as speculation from uh, theoretical thinking, but by no means it should be a social practice. That's all I'm trying to say.